as am I. And maybe, just maybe, because it's been such a miserable year to be a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, it's been very, very tough, that he decided somewhere along the line while he was writing up the budget that, no, this is going to be some good news because we need some good news after a season like we've had with the Leafs. So, Ken was first elected as an MLA for Kenora Pelly in 1995. During his years in opposition, he served as a critic for a number of major portfolios, including education, labor, health, and finance. Ken was also the interim leader of the Saskatchewan Party and leader of the opposition from 1997 to 1999. He is currently the deputy leader of the Saskatchewan Party. Ken and his wife Gail have 2 children. Their son Bryce and his wife Olivia reside in Yorkton with grandchildren Willow and Scarlett, and their daughter Lindsay and her partner Barney reside in Calgary. This will be Ken's last budget, given he announced on April 28th of last year that he would not seek re-election after 2 decades of public service. In the words of Premier Brad Wall, you know that saying that no one is irreplaceable? Well, it's not true. Ken Krawetz is impossible to replace. On that note, please welcome the Honourable Ken Krawetz.
Thank you very much, John. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and kick off what is referred to as the post-budget tour. Tried to get through to as many communities as possible in the province to share the budget with you and to be able to hear your concerns or your comments about the budget that I delivered yesterday. Thank you to Kevin and Christine and June and Warren and Laura for taking the time. I know you listened to that speech yesterday, and here you are again today. Hopefully you don't nod off and forget that I'm up here. The budget is a document, it's online. I know many of you have probably taken the opportunity to have a look at it. I know some of you were in the chamber yesterday afternoon. And my job today, hopefully in about 20 minutes time, so keep eating and enjoy your dessert and your coffee and your meal. I'm going to try to share some of the highlights. As you know, yesterday the address was almost an hour, so I'm not going to do an hour. I'm going to probably take up 20 to 25 minutes and hopefully allow some time for you to respond by way of questions. My voice is a little strained today. It was a long day yesterday, and by the time we finished by about 10:30 last night with different interviews, I was glad to shut up for a while. So today we're going to try to give you those important points, and hopefully my voice remains strong. And by the way, if there's anyone that needs to get back to work early, you will not be insulting me at all if you have to leave in the middle or near the end of my address. All right, so 1 year ago today, the price of a barrel of oil was just at about $100 a barrel. Today, less than half that, which creates challenges. At the same time, many signs of continuing strength in Saskatchewan's diverse growing economy are there. And what are those signs? Well, we've got the lowest unemployment rate in Canada. We have Mosaic, who just announced a $1.7 billion project for K3 mine at Esterhazy. We have expansions underway in many of our potash companies. Saskatchewan's population yesterday hit an all-time high, 1,132,640 people. That's the most people ever in the province of Saskatchewan. And we know, thank you. When you take a look at the kind of growth that means, you have to go back to the days of our very first Premier, Walter Scott, to see that kind of growth. So, when you look at the fact that the province has 122,000 more people living in it than we had back in 2007, that brings challenges, but they're good challenges. They're the challenges of growth and not the challenges of stagnation or decline. So we had some decisions to make about this budget. And we based it basically, and when I say we, of course, that begins with Treasury Board. Treasury Board began meeting back in the fall, and we started to look at the budget. Well, then, the price of a barrel of oil at mid-year was still averaging $100. We didn't expect $42 or $43, but as we moved through, we realized that the revenues of 2.5%, or I should say probably 3.5% was where we were starting at, we're not going to hold. And we had to make some tough choices. So we did that. With these decisions, I'm going to highlight 5 things that I think played a very significant role in the budget that you saw. Number 1, our first decision was about keeping taxes low. We, as government, over our period of time, have made the largest tax cuts in Saskatchewan history. And the budget that I announced yesterday contained no tax increase. I'll talk a little bit about the taxes that we considered, because people have said, you know, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, we thought you were going to do municipal revenue sharing, we thought you were going to do the education property tax, and I'll discuss those items in detail. Second decision was all around making record investments in infrastructure. And that's the decision when you start to look at the fact that we have 122,000 more people. The enrollments of our schools are going up. There is a need to ensure that the Regina bypass is built. So we wanted to invest in infrastructure, and that's point number 2. Point number 3, instead of raising the taxes, instead of doing the easy thing that governments have done in the past, we decided that we would control operating spending. The 4th one was to help the private sector create jobs. We have some new tax incentives for job creation. There are also increased training opportunities for young people to fill those jobs. That's probably the point that we hear from chambers, like the Regina Chamber, from you as business people. You identify the ability to attract and retain skilled workers as your number 1 challenge. And that's something that we need to keep paying attention to. And the 5th one was to balance the budget. On an operating side, this budget is balanced. It has a $107 million surplus, and we are going to continue to stay in that kind of a frame. Revenue itself, revenue is $14.28 billion. That's up 1.2% from last year, just 1.2%. Expenses are at a spend level of $14.17 billion. So that's why there is a surplus of $107 million. That increase in expenses, by the way, is also just 1.2%. Our investments in people, and you'll see significant investments in very specific areas. Health, education, and social services continue to be our priorities, and they account for nearly 3/4 of our budget. So those of you who are all good at math probably are looking at that and saying, well, just over $14 billion. 3/4 of that goes to health, education, and social services. That's over $10 billion. And the other point about that, of course, is that $10 billion is $4.3 billion higher than the spend on those same organizations or same ministries in 2007-8. That's 67% up. So that's where, as many of you may have heard, there was a question asked about where has the money gone over the last number of years. Well, that's where $4.3 billion goes this year and last year and the year before, because we want to invest in people. Overall spending increase in these areas that I just mentioned is nearly 2%. Even with all the challenges, we're still providing 2% to those key areas. For all of the other areas of government, by the way, that are included in the budget, their spend is 0.6% less. So we made some difficult choices, and there are ministries and agencies that are going to be getting less. Very quickly, I want to highlight, I'm sure you've read the media, we made some changes to the Active Families Benefit, Graduate Retention Program, Research and Development Tax Credit, the Seniors Drug Plan, the Saskatchewan Employment Supplement, have all been changed to ensure ongoing sustainability. Those plans are still there. They're there for the low-income people, and we believe that they're going to meet the needs of so many. As a result of controlling operating spending, this budget, as I said, contains no tax increases. But most importantly, and I think it was a story that was front and center, the Premier made reference to it, there is no change to revenue sharing with municipalities. Now, that was under consideration. The mayor of Regina was leading that applause. Now, you have to understand, folks, that we have had a formula in place that means that we, from the provincial sales tax revenue that we get in the year before, 1% or one of those 5 percentage points is allocated to municipalities. This year, because of no change to the formula, and the full 1 percentage point being allocated, municipalities are going to get $265 million. That's the highest number ever provided to municipalities, and it's going to continue. When the Premier alluded to it, we're going to have good discussions with SUMA and SARM, but the Premier indicated that our resources revenue is going like this line, and the municipal revenue sharing line is going like that. You'll take a look at yesterday's budget. For those of you who have done that, you will notice that we're forecasting the PSC revenue for March 31 in a few days, I guess, a couple weeks. That projection is $1,405 million. So already, municipalities have taken a look at the budget document. They're saying, okay, 20% of $1,405 million. Well, next year's revenue sharing might be $281 million. And I think that's what the formula has provided. It has provided stability. So we made that decision that we were going to continue providing that level of support to municipalities, and that's why the revenue sharing for this year remains as is, and we will discuss next year as we move forward over the course of the next few months. I want to talk a little bit about the potash industry. There is strength in the potash industry, there's no question. And we have met and discussed with the potash industry the potash production tax, and it will help offset. It'll help offset that hole, that oil hole that we are experiencing this year, that loss of revenue of about $661 million. And that's just on oil. That's not on, there's additional lost revenue on the resource surcharge and other things. Potash, the industry has worked with our officials in the economy, and this year we're expecting, not only because of the change to the potash production tax and how the different potash companies will be able to offset their profit against investment, but we also know there's growth in the potash industry. There's a resurgence back into production. We're estimating again 11.0 million tons in the budget, and the price of a ton of potash is back up into the projected of $297. So those are all positive things, and the potash industry is so important to our province. And as I said, I'm so pleased that Mosaic was able to continue forward in their development at K3 and yesterday. Another item in the budget, and again I'm talking about a summary budget, so you know that the government business enterprises, we often refer to them as GBEs. Not a swear word, it's just GBEs. It's the government business enterprises, and that's all our crowns. That's the not-for-profit insurance organizations like WCB and Autofund, SLGA. All of those make up the pool called the government business enterprises, and they're showing strength. And in fact, this year there's a projected revenue from that group of $905 million, which is up $237 million from last year's budget. I want to talk a little bit about infrastructure. As I said, infrastructure is so important in a growing province. Yesterday I announced that we're initiating a 4-year plan. It's the Saskatchewan Builds Capital Plan, and that 4-year plan is a $5.8 billion plan. This year alone, we're going to be looking at a spend of about $1.3 billion for those core things that we do. That $1.3 billion is 50% higher than last year's investment in infrastructure. So it's going to meet some of our challenges, because that 4-year plan includes 18 schools that we're moving forward with. It includes the replacement of the North Battleford Provincial Hospital that needed to be done decades ago. It includes the Regina bypass. It includes moving forward with the the Swift Current Long-Term Care Facility. It includes interchanges at Warman and Martinsville. It's just a program that we need to put in place. And we're moving forward with those kinds of things, health facilities, long-term care. We're moving forward on the construction of the Leader Hospital. Announced some planning dollars for the Weyburn Hospital. Announced a number of things that are very important to people to meet the challenge of the additional 122,000. Just very quickly, I want to tell you about the spend of the transportation, specifically the transportation sector. $581 million in 2015-16. Here's where the money's going to go. $211 million for the next phase of the Regina buyback. $337.8 million on enhancement and rehab projects, which include the following. $23 million for twinning of Highway 16 east of Saskatoon to east of Quebec. $11.4 million for twinning Highway 7 from Saskatoon to Delisle. $7.6 million for twinning Highway 39 from Estevan to Beanfate. $9 million for renovations at the Stony Rapids Airport. $1.2 million for twinning Highway 6 and 39. Planning dollars for Regina to Estevan. $7.5 million for those interchanges, planning dollars at Warman and Martinsville. $5.8 million for passing lanes on Highway 7 from Delisle to Rosedown. $1 million planning for the next set of passing lanes on Highway 5 from Saskatoon to Humboldt. So you can see that there's an extensive program that's going to be put in place just for this year. And we're also putting in place, as I said, it's a 4-year capital plan, and we're going to continue to ensure that we meet the challenge of the transportation sector. We're spending $74.5 million on municipal infrastructure. $10 million goes towards the Building Canada Fund, again in partnership with our tripartite group of the feds and municipalities. We have $3.8 million for the Building Canada Fund communities component, and we have $2.3 million for Saskatchewan Infrastructure Growth Initiative. We have the assistance, continued assistance with the transit assistance for people with disabilities and the Building Communities Program. So extensive work being done. I'm going to spend some time on education. Education has always been something very dear to me. I want to tell you what we're doing in terms of spending your dollars on education and the facilities. We're going to be spending about $248.5 million on K-12 education. Here's where it goes. $157.4 million for 9 joint use schools. 3 of the 9 are here in Regina, 4 in Saskatoon, 1 in Martinsville, and 1 in Warman. $31.6 million for maintenance and renewal. That's up $7 million for maintenance, and it includes a renovation project of the Hague High School. $10.6 million for relocatables, of which many are going right here in Regina. $19.2 million to begin construction of the 3 schools that I announced last year, right here in Regina, Connaught Elementary and Sacred Heart, and out at St. Brew, a new school there. The next stages of dollars that are required to keep these other schools underway occur in Langenburg, Hudson Bay, Martinsville High School, Gravelburg School, Weyburn Comprehensive, Holy Cross High School, George Vanier, and St. Matthew. Those last 3 all in Saskatoon. Significant dollars are being spent to ensure that we keep those projects, get them to completion. In advanced training and education, quickly, $46.6 million. 10.6 goes to the continued construction at Southeast Regional College. $7.9 million for continued construction at the Academic Health Sciences facility at the University of Saskatchewan. And $4.5 million for continued construction of the Parkland Regional College Center at Yorkton. In healthcare, $256.4 million. Where is that going? $129 million for North Battleford for the first stages of replacement of that hospital. $64.9 million, the continued construction of the Swift Current long-term care. We are spending $15.7 million on health equipment capital replacement, including machinery and lab equipment, medical imaging equipment, and a linear accelerator. 27.8 million on healthcare maintenance. That's up 4.5%. And in your documents, those of you who had that, you'll see that we have the entire page of capital spend, and it's found on page 24 in the budget documents. You'll be able to see all of the projects that we're going to be working on over the next 4 years. We're in the final stages of completing the Moose Jaw Hospital, and they need $7.8 million to get them through to the final completion. $6.2 million to start construction of the Leader Integrated Care Facility. $4.5 million for the Kelvington Integrated Care Facility, as I've already mentioned. And $500,000 to begin the planning of an acute care facility in Weyburn. Large spend there as well. On top of this spend, every year for years, and I was sharing a personal story at the table about SAS Power that happened to me this last Sunday, and I can get into it later. We're going to continue investing in Crown Corporations, another $2 billion investment on top of the $2 billion investment that we made last year. Our Crown Corporations, largely SAS Power, SaskTel, and Sask Energy, need to have that kind of investment to ensure that we meet the challenges of a growing province. As a result of the plan that I just identified for 4 years, and I've always used this expression, the checkbook method. Most of you pay your bills by the monthly method of checkbook. Well, if we're going to do $5.8 billion worth of spend, you're not going to do it by waiting to have the monies in the bank to be able to do that. So we've looked at a combination of things. Saskatchewan is in a unique position. We have now 2 AAA credit ratings. What does that mean? That means we can borrow money at a very reduced rate. We're able to do 30-year money right now under 3%. That's phenomenal. And that reason is because we, along with the 2 other provinces who have AAAs, and that's British Columbia and Alberta, we have the ability to pay down some of our operational debt. That $6.8 billion is now at 3.8. We've been able to secure better and better and better interest rates. So what we are going to do is borrow up to $700 million to ensure that we do the construction of that $5.8 billion worth of investment. Couple of comments and I'll stop here. We did some things called the New Growth Tax Incentives. And there's people in the room that might be looking at these things as opportunities. The Manufacturing and Processing Exporter Tax Incentive will provide tax credits to eligible exporting corporations that increase the number of full-time employees or head office jobs. That's number 1. Number 2, there is a rebate to eligible primary steel producers that make a minimum capital investment of $100 million in new or expanded productive capacity. So those are 2 key items. Final comment is about jobs and training. $27 million to fulfill the 3 medical training commitments that we've made in the past. We have said we were going to have 100 medical seats, training seats in the province. We're there. We said we were going to have 120 medical residency seats. We're there. We said we were going to increase the number of nurse practitioner seats to 20. We're there. And now we need to continue funding, and that's why $27 million goes to ensuring that those things continue. Adult basic education, we've added 200 more additional seats there, and now we're spending over $25 million on ABE programs. Apprenticeship seats, we've added another 300 training seats to that number, and now that line item requires $23 million. So ladies and gentlemen, I think you can see from the spend that we're doing, those services in health, education, and by education I'm now talking on a summary basis, which is not only the pre-K to 12, but also our advanced education, the infrastructure spend, the social services spend. It was a tough budget, and we made some decisions not to increase taxes. All of those things were on the table, but our final decision was, let's keep spending down at 1.2% on the operating, and let's allow the people of Saskatchewan to continue growing this province, and that's the budget that was presented to you yesterday. Thank you, and I'll open it up for comments and questions.
There's a few. Good. Was this the first time the government of Saskatchewan had to deliver a provincial budget without a federal budget?
That I can't answer, I don't know. You know, the federal system is a lot different. I had my last meeting with the finance ministers of all the provinces and territories, and of course Finance Minister Oliver back in December. And in December, we have on the Sunday night, there's a gathering of only the ministers, and we receive an envelope. An envelope tells us what our Canada Health transfer is going to be, it tells us what our Canada Social transfer is going to be, and for those who get equalization like Ontario, they also find out what their equalization payment is. So, you know, that kind of information is there. The federal budget sometimes has an effect on taxes, it does have an effect on some income, but really the key elements, which of course are federal transfers, we know about them long before we do our budget.
Is there still a highway plan for Pilot Butte and White City interchanges?
Absolutely. As I announced in my remarks about, I'm going to just go back to make sure I give you the right number, $211 million for the next phase of the Regina bypass project. We're still doing the analysis as far as whether or not this is going to be a P3. We believe it will be because we have a commitment from P3 Canada of $200 million towards this project. We're doing that analysis to ensure that there's value for money. I believe there will be, and very soon, I think in probably the next 3 months, as we move forward through the due diligence that needs to be done, we're going to be moving forward on that project. It's significant. We are doing land acquisition right now. We're moving forward, and the entire project is going to be completed probably by about 2018, 2019.
When the price of oil first fell, the Premier announced that government would require ministerial approval on discretionary spending over $10,000. Is this still in effect?
I am asking all of the ministers that are in cabinet to be mindful of the spending that goes on within their ministries. That's just due diligence that needs to be done by cabinet ministers. It's going to continue. As was announced, there was a hiring freeze that is in place. That will end with the fiscal year that ends on March 31. But the ministers and their deputies are still going to be involved in ensuring that we do the replacements that need to be done in terms of HR, but we're also going to be asking our ministers to pay very careful attention to the spend. That's the side that my ministers know that I'm a stickler on that.
Is that true, Kevin? There was a commitment by Premier Wall to a Plains Health Center development. Is that still on the books? If yes, when is it planned?
There's still continued discussion in the Ministry of Health about how we are going to deliver services. We know that we need to do more to alleviate the concerns at emergency rooms, and that is why we've increased the funding to deal with exactly that. The center is still something that we're looking at, but the way it might be produced might be differently than we first envisioned. But that's ongoing discussions in the Ministry of Health.
We correctly focus on highway infrastructure. Does the province spend any time and/or money on our rail infrastructure?
We're not involved, of course, in the major lines like CN or CP, but we are involved in short line rails. We provide grants and we have a oversight of the short line rails, and we have been working very successfully with many different companies in providing some incentives to them in terms of some grant monies to get them started.
Mr. Deputy Premier, you've done such a great job at managing the finances of the province. Could you manage the Toronto Maple Leafs? Are there some things that are fun about the work you do? Anything specifically fulfilling?
My job as finance minister is fun. I can tell you, it's challenging, but when you have very good members on Treasury Board, and I was lucky in my 5 years. I've had many different members on Treasury Board, but all of them have made great contributions. 2 of my Treasury Board members are actually here. 2 of our 7 total, Kevin and June Drowdy, have been part of the Treasury Board. That's what makes the decisions that we make, it make them fun, because we have time to debate, we have time to hear one another out. No minister brings bad ideas. I think I said this last year, but it bears repeating. No minister brings bad ideas to Treasury Board. They're all great ideas, but we, as Treasury Board, have to prioritize. And then we look at a balanced budget, and then we look at revenue declines, and then we say, okay, so now what are we going to do? So those are the decisions that go on all the time. I've really enjoyed my 5 years as finance minister. As I said last year, I thought maybe that budget that I delivered last year was going to be my last one. And the Premier said, yeah, you can make your announcement that you're not running on April 28th, but you're staying in finance. So I very much appreciate that, because my 20 years, soon to be 20 years on June 21, as MLA have gone by very quickly. I've enjoyed serving the people of Kenora-Pelly. I've enjoyed serving, and I look at it maybe a little bit different, because I was involved with education all the time. I look at it as representing all Saskatchewan. You are no different as individuals here than the people in Kenora-Pelly constituency. It's my job as an MLA to serve all of Saskatchewan, and especially it's my job as Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance to serve all, and I've really enjoyed it. So it's fun. Thank you.
One of Saskatchewan's finest finance